Hello, world! I'm Chris Pirillo, and you've tuned into another live edition of the Locker Room Daily Reporter, TLDR for short. Yes, you could have watched this live. TLDR comes in 3 magical parts. The first part is free for anybody to watch or experience, even though you can't watch it live. You could watch it live if you were a patron. But people who are not yet my patrons can't watch the TLDR sessions live. It's pretty much an hour or so, if not more than an hour, of tech talk every weekday. The first part is free, the Q&A. Today, people have been asking, hey, Chris, where's your review on the Moto X Pure Edition? Well, today I'm going to be doing it for you. Live. We'll do it live. I'm going to do it live. And then the second part of TLDR is an AMA, an Ask Me Anything, where you can ask me anything, really. And that's just for the patrons. And then after that, again, just for my patrons, I'll be diving into the tech news, covering a lot of what you probably want me to cover anyway. So, this first part, as I said, not very clearly in the very beginning of this video, which is already off to such a great start, is for everybody. The Moto X review. Now, if you were a patron, you know that you've had access to this review for a few weeks now. Yeah, a few weeks. So you got it ahead of time. And now you get it live. I've been using it. I was very grateful to get the review units of the Pure Edition. I had a chance to customize it. In fact, that's one of the first things that I noted as a part of the positive experience. I could customize just about anything in relation to this device, and I chose to make it look plain and simple and clean because I'm into customization to a certain degree, but I also like very plain, simple looking devices. I like black, I like white, I like silver, I like straightforward devices, really. And the nice thing about the Moto X, at least the way that they're presenting it now, is that you can customize the back plate, you could customize even the boot screen, on the device. I was shocked, honestly, that you could do that, but I didn't. I didn't even customize that. You could, though. You could dive in deep and customize things so that when you opened it and it ships to you, of course you get it shipped to you and then you open it. You can't open it before it ships to you. It's like a customized experience, and I think that's enough of a value add for the Moto X Pure Edition. To me, it was a better out-of-the-box Android experience as far as a phablet was concerned, and I would put this squarely in the realm of phablet personally, and maybe it's just that I have small-ish hands. I wouldn't consider it as small as my first Moto X. This is the second edition, by the way, the Pure Edition. So I've got the iPhone 6s in front of it, and you can see that it's slightly wider, slightly taller. It's phablet-y. And any time that I'm operating a smartphone that I can't use just one hand easily, I put it within the range of phablet or phone/tablet, even though it's closer to a smartphone size than, say, a tablet size. Phablet's the word. I didn't invent the word phablet. That's not my word for it. But let me just go ahead and illustrate the smoothness as I pop open the menu. Did you see that menu pop open? Now, what you have to keep in mind is that I'm streaming at maybe 24 to 30 frames per second onto YouTube. I can't show you how fluid this animation is generally, unless you're watching a video or I'm recording or able to stream in 60 frames per second specifically right now. And what I need to tell you, as my eyes translate for you, is that the transitions are smooth. It puts iOS to shame. The smoothness of the Moto X Pure Edition, assuming there's no workload, because you have to assume that with Android. Anytime Android's doing something in the background, everything gets choppy. It always happens. But assuming there's nothing else going on with Android, it's a very smooth experience. See, I have to attenuate the excitement. So I like the fact that I can tap and swipe or scroll and move up and down and everything, and seemingly not see any dropped frames, seemingly see a smooth amount of scrolling that, again, puts iOS to shame. It really does, like in terms of the general smoothness, for the most part. So this is just one example of a better out-of-the-box experience for Android, for a phablet, or just an Android experience in general, specifically with the animation. I would say that as far as the details were concerned on screen, like when I was looking at text, when I was doing anything, when I was working in an app or on a particular project. I don't know. I didn't really do any major projects with my phone. Not many people do. But I would say that it had very sharp screen details. Couldn't tell you the exact PPI. You could look that up. It's a spec. The PPI is a spec. What I'm telling you is that, to me, everything seemed sharp. It was very seemingly sharp. That seemingly sharp, that seemingly. Does it work? Maybe not. Text was sharp. Images seemed to be very crisp, very clear. I really liked looking at the screen. I enjoyed looking at the screen. There was nothing about it that made me feel like, ew, that's kind of muddy and pixelated. Not at all. So I liked it. It earns a passing grade. Not that I give grades to smartphones and devices necessarily. The camera, I wouldn't say it was best in class in terms of like, well, as far as the other Android cameras that are out there, you probably would not be getting the Moto X because you want the camera. The camera's okay. It's passable. It's workable. It's better than nothing, but that's not necessarily me saying that's a good thing. Initially, the macro shots I thought were outstanding. I mean, just holding onto it with one hand and tapping, getting some close-up shots. I was really blown away by how it captured detail as quickly as it did. But the more I used it, the more I realized that it really wasn't anything to write home about, specifically in relation to other Android devices and their cameras, which we've talked about in other videos, and we will in future videos as well. So the Moto X camera, initially macro shots were good. That's not to say that they wouldn't be good into the future and using them over and over and over again, but it just speaks to how it could be. How once you've mastered the using a device consistently, constantly as your primary driver or your daily driver, you could get some good shots with the camera. But do not expect, in my estimation, a best-in-class camera here. Responsive screen, as I noted, generally speaking, responsive screen, clean animations, fluid animations. It really is an example of where I think Android is doing better in terms of performance, outright, assuming there's nothing going on in the background. Whoever's working in that specific arena with Android, and, kudos to Motorola for, packaging it together in a pure edition. And to use the word pure, by the way, well, maybe I'll get in. I'm getting through this. I'm trying to talk about the positive things, the things that I liked about the device first. I'll get into that in a second. I really appreciated the onboarding. So when you first boot up the device, you're walking through it, you're not sure what's going on. Maybe you are. That's great if you are. But for the new user, I'm not a new Android user. I'm saying that for a new user, the onboarding was amazing. Like, compared to an iOS device, like, there's no help. I mean, you got a Tips app on an iOS device, and this is not about iOS versus Android. What I'm saying is it is a radically different onboarding experience. And so I appreciated the finer touches of, even though I'm like, yeah, I already know, it would be nice if I didn't know anything about the device to have something like that, to be able to illustrate certain features. And so I thought for a new user, it was really solid onboarding. I don't know how to explain this, but the screen feel, is that fair to say? Like, as I glide my finger across the screen, it just glides. I like how the screen feels. I mean, forget the animation being fluid for a second. I'm saying that the screen itself, it feels nice on my finger. It doesn't feel like not nice. Is this a new category? Well, it might be for me. The screen feel. It jumped out at me as, wow, I really like how that feels. Smooth. And maybe it was the material that they used on the phone, but either way, it was not lost on me. I really, really liked how my finger slid across the screen. Apart from how it looked, it feels nice too. I don't know, maybe this is a category. I don't watch enough device reviews, which probably explains why I do mine the way I choose to do mine. In terms of a pure edition, as I fumble with it, I felt that it wasn't really gunked up with a lot of third-party stuff that I didn't necessarily need. The only app that I really felt like I needed to install was the Android Wear application, that after I got it running with the corresponding Moto 360, which I'm going to be reviewing. I've already posted that review for the patrons, but I'm going to be talking about it in depth in a future TLDR. There weren't a lot of Motorola apps. It didn't feel like I was so far off the mark with Android. And by the way, it's running version 5.1.1, which at that point in time was the latest or later-ish version of Android. Now, of course, we are on to Android Marshmallow. But it doesn't feel like I'm losing out or missing out on much with this version of Android on the device. It feels pure-ish. And I think that's the word I want to use, if I can, in relation to my experience with Motorola products. It's not pure, it's pure-ish. So now I'm going to move into the segue or I'm segueing now into the things that I didn't really like about this particular product. John Dijaboo, who's watching live, says, your review is one of a kind, Chris. Thank you. I think. One guy complained last night during the unboxing of the Darth Vader limited edition PS4. He said, your unboxings are too long. And I'm like, thank goodness. I'm here to talk. That's what I do. It heated up quickly after using the camera a few times. Like, I was testing the camera, just doing average shots, and it heated up. Like, it was hot. Like, it was hot. Enough for me to like, whoa, holy cow, what am I doing here? It was hot. And I'm going to blame the camera app because it was the only app that was open. It was the only app that was doing anything or having anything going on with it. It was it got hot quick. And I don't know if that's just indicative of the product. Maybe it was something with the software. Maybe it was something with when I say the product, the hardware in conjunction with the platform. Could have been for a variety of reasons, but it got hot. Specifically when I was using the camera app. It was very difficult to get crisp HDR on a regular basis with regular shots. I've never really been impressed with any Android camera in relation to HDR, ever. Maybe once or twice. But it's hard to remember. I mean, I've looked at so many Android devices over the years. They're getting better. But honestly, I'm not that impressed with a crisp HDR shot. I've yet to really snap one that I can remember. And I use HDR on a very regular basis, even in indoor shots, because if I'm dealing with the darks and lights, and I want a balance between them, especially if I don't want to lose some of the detail in the whites. I use HDR indoors, and I know a lot of the use case for HDR might be outside, with the sunshine and brightness and darkness and everything. It was very difficult, if not impossible, on this particular camera, which is what I'm talking about right now, this one right here, to get a crisp HDR shot. So when I talk about the pure-ish experience, I noted that the gallery app was duplicated. Like everything else was kind of googly-ish. Except for Google Play. Let's exit out of there. See here, Google. Where's the gallery app? I may have actually hit it. Did I hide it already? I might have done it. See, there's the Moto app. There's the Connect app. I must have hit it then. I don't like that about Android. If you're gonna create an app experience, create something new. Create something that can't be picked up anywhere else or isn't in Android by default, or isn't from Google by default. By iterating and doing something different, I mean, it has to be radically different, right? And I didn't perceive the gallery app as being radically different or better than what Google might have been doing. So I'm just saying, I didn't really appreciate that. It's just a takeaway. But I'm going to say that about every Android experience, minus stock Android. If an OEM does that, I'm going to say that. I thought this little bumper it came with, I don't know if you noticed, but here, look, you can see the reflection in the light. Oh, 3 lights! Actually more than that in the LED. There's a bumper, this little plastic bumper around it, and it's kind of nice, out of the package. You drop it, it hits the corner or whatever, and it could save you from a ding. And I think that's rather nice. I appreciated that. So it's a bonus. But I'm also going to say it's kind of chintzy. It's like, it doesn't cheapen the device, but it's nice to have. I'm just saying this, the plasticky kind of feel, it really, I just can't, I can only imagine it would be better served by a better bumper. And I use cases on most phones that I use on a regular basis. Don't get me wrong. I appreciated its inclusion, but feel that it could have been styled differently. Of course, they're probably not going to put a top end bumper in the default package. They could and raise the price, and people would complain there too. I'm just saying that I would probably have chosen a different material than plastic that wouldn't necessarily bring down the quality of the device. And maybe you're fine with this type of plastic. That's fine. I just thought it kind of felt chintzy after a while, but it is nice to have. So it's kind of like, well, it's all down to style, right? Like some people would say that they don't like the back that I chose. I like the back. That's a personal thing, right? So the bumper may very well be a personal thing too. And keep in mind that anytime I talk through one of these experiences, this is just my perspective. I've got no horse in this race. You can have your own opinion. I don't care. I care about you. I might care about your opinion. But if you have a different experience, great, because you're a different person. You're supposed to, right? Just because I say something, understand that it may not necessarily be a flat fact. It's just based on my experience. I should have said that in the beginning, but oh well. I'm doing it live. So I chose this plastic back here, and because it was black, it was pure-ish black, but it's got grooves, and it collected a lot of dust pretty quickly. Hairs and dust and grime. And I don't know if I would have chosen that if I had known it was going to collect a bunch of gunk. That kind of annoyed me pretty quickly. So I was constantly doing this, which of course created even more gunk. And I really don't want to be in the business of cleaning off the back of my phone on a regular basis. So I don't know if I would have chosen this back the second time around. I found that the whites on the screen, it didn't seem like it was a pure white, but again, I can't really take away from it, but and it's difficult because I'm not a display expert at all. I wasn't taken away, or I didn't feel that the experience was taken away by its white balance. It just felt like, or it seems like it isn't a pure white. Like there may be a better screen out there, but as I said, it just kind of depends on what you're accustomed to. Every screen seems to have a different a tint one way or another when it comes to the white. Some are a bit blue, some are a bit red. I hesitate to say that it took away too much from the experience of the device, but it feels like the white, in contrast to the colors, was dulled. Like it wasn't the contrast between the white and, let's say, like I'm looking at the icons. It just seems like there's a sheen of diminishing white. No, what's the word I use? What's the term to use? It just doesn't seem that the contrast is all that high. And maybe it's the fact that it's more apparent when there's a lot of white on the screen, like if I'm in the menu or if I'm in Google Chrome. It just doesn't seem to be vibrant in terms of the screen. Now, you might sit there and say, but this screen is the most vibrant thing out there. I'm not seeing it. That's me. I'm not seeing it. It seems that the contrast ratio isn't as strong as it could be. And that's more pronounced when there's a lot of white on the screen. The next thing I had noted, I had a terrible amount of misswipes during when I was in the photo, specifically working in the camera app or the gallery apps, a lot of misswipes. And I would chalk that up to a lack of optimization in the app. But, anytime I keep misswiping or mistapping, it frustrates me because I know it can't be an issue with the quality of the screen. It's likely an issue with the app just not, well, either A, being written well, or B, having a bug in it that needs to be addressed. And that could very well be fixed. I don't chalk that up to a hardware problem as much as I do a software issue. But I will say that I had a terrible amount of misswipes, specifically when I was working with photo zooming. I did notice normal, quote-unquote, normal Android frame drops with usual activity. So if there was something that was going on in the background and I was trying to do something in the foreground, it would kind of jitter, drop frames. That's getting better. They really are improving it, but they're not out of the woods. But don't get me wrong, I slag iOS for the same reason now. And that was not even a problem that existed a few years ago. Apple's copying Google and not in the right ways. It felt like, and I think this isn't damning so much as it's just, this is my feeling. There are a lot of Android devices out there, a lot. And some of them, have value adds like being able to customize out of the box. But it felt like an average Android device quickly. And that, you can take that as a positive or a negative. It just felt like an average Android device quickly. Like it didn't feel like I was using anything different between this Android device and another. Apart from them maybe running Android and looking different and, having different menus or different default apps. It just felt like an average Android experience, which may be what you're looking for. But there was nothing that kept pulling me back to this above any other Android device that I might have used. It felt average quickly. Average. And so this was an average Chris Pirillo review. I'm not really going to give thumbs up, thumbs down. Good for Motorola for creating something like this. Like I said, I think the biggest thing that really jumped out at me as a value for going down this path versus another is not the pure-ish Android experience so much as it is the customization up front. And if that doesn't titillate you, honestly, I can't imagine why you might be interested in this device over another Android device. Unless you can get a good deal on it, at which point I'd say, hey, man, it was not horrible. It wasn't bad. It was in the middle. That's my feeling. It was in the middle. Thank you, everybody, for listening and paying attention. We have a couple of questions here. I don't know if these are going to be rolled over into the AMA portion of TLDR. Let's see here. Raul Madera asks, Chris, are you finding that you like the software design ethos in comparison to iOS? Oh, okay. So we're talking about Android. Let's talk about newer Android experiences versus iOS experiences. I'm actually going to save that for the patron AMA here in a minute, Raul. I'm going to go ahead and close this out for the people who are not yet patrons. You can become one. Head over to Chris Pirillo to check out the links in the description. I'm going to answer that question now and then talk about tech news, answer other questions from the people who are watching live. Thank you again for your support in whatever way you decide to give it. Patrons, stick around. Everybody else, well, I guess we'll see you in the next video. Today's free podcast highlight was brought to you by all of my active patrons from ChrisPirillo.com. If you want access to the full TLDR episodes, both audio, video, past, present, and future, which can be up to an hour long or longer, with even more tech insight from me every weekday, plus other bonus content without ads, and support me at the same time, you can sign up to become one of my supernomies too. This is just a brief taste of what I'm producing for you daily. Again, get more through ChrisPirillo.com.